Richard Beauvais, from the coastal town of Sechelt, British Columbia, grew up his whole life believing he was indigenous. But the DNA test he took showed that he had a mix of Ukrainian, Ashkenazi Jewish, and Polish ancestry. Around the same time and nearly 1,500 miles, the sister of Eddie Ambrose from Winnipeg, Manitoba, who was raised in a Ukrainian family, also took a DNA test and discovered that she was not related to Eddie. Rather, Mr. Beauvais was her biological brother. This led to a life-changing revelation, that two men, Richard Beauvais and Eddie Ambrose, were born on the same day at the same hospital in the small town of Arborg, Manitoba, in 1955, but were switched at birth and taken home by each other's biological parents. On Thursday, nearly 70 years later, Mr. Beauvais and Mr. Ambrose received a formal apology in person from Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew for the trauma they endured because of the mix-up. I rise today to deliver an apology that has been a long time coming, for actions that harm two children, two sets of parents, and two families across many generations, Mr. Kinew said in the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. We are sometimes asked to understand empathy and compassion by considering what it is like to walk a mile in another person's shoes, the Premier remarked. If that statement is true, our honored guests here today will perhaps understand compassion and empathy on a level very few of us will be able to approach. In their early years, the two had led starkly different lives, their lawyer Bill Gange told the BBC. Mr. Beauvais, 68, was raised Métis, an Indigenous people in Canada of mixed Indigenous and European ancestry. His father died when he was 3 years old, leaving him responsible for his younger siblings while his mother struggled with the loss. He attended a day school for Indigenous children, and was later forcibly taken from his family in the 60s. Scoop an assimilationist policy in Canada where Indigenous children were placed either in foster care or were adopted outside of their communities. Meanwhile, Mr. Ambrose grew up on a farm in rural Manitoba, with a very loving and very supportive Ukrainian ancestral family, said Mr. Gagné, where he listened to Ukrainian folk songs before bed. Though he, too, was later adopted after becoming an orphan at the age of 12. Throughout his life, Mr. Ambrose was never aware of his Indigenous ancestry. In his apology, Mr. Kinew shared that, remarkably, the two men's lives slightly overlapped across the years. As a child, Mr. Ambrose asked a girl from a few towns over to be on his baseball team at recess, Mr. Kinew said, not knowing that she was actually his biological sister. Mr. Gange said that both are very proud of who they have become and of the families that raised them. They have also gained a new family through the discovery. Mr. Ambrose has connected with his biological relatives, and has become a member of the Manitoba Métis Federation. There has been no word, however, on whether the men will receive financial compensation, though Mr. Gange said he will continue to push for it. The Winnipeg-based lawyer has successfully sought out compensation for other Canadians switched at birth in the past, but in those cases, the individuals were born in federally run hospitals. Mr. Beauvais and Mr. Ambrose are the third known case of a birth mix-up in Manitoba. 2 other cases have been reported in the Atlantic province of Newfoundland. Mr. Gange said it is difficult to know just how rare or common these stories are. He noted that Mr. Beauvais and Mr. Ambrose made the discovery only through a fluke, thanks to the DNA test kit.